Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we have the episode 2 of the Rumblecast. So last episode was very fun to do, and we thought we should do this again. But this time we decided we are going to upload these Rumblecasts on Mondays. So starting this week and the following weeks, we should have a Rumblecast every Monday. So like always, or like last time, we are going to have 2 parts of this video or this podcast. The first part is going to be on my channel. We are going to cover 3 different topics. The first one being Rumble is in trouble. What are we supposed to do? Second, the pros and cons about the themed faction week. And the third one, top 5 meta decks for both of us. And then on the other side of the channel or the podcast, we are going to have 3 other topics. What are our 3 topics on your channel?
So yeah, on my channel this week, we're going to be covering features that I think, and hopefully Big Math agrees with me, that Rumble needs in order to, I think, thrive as a game. Something that is, I get a lot on my YouTube comments and a lot on the Reddit and a lot of other places is how pay to win is Rumble. You know, like comparatively, how pay to win is Rumble. And actually a little bit about kind of the amount of money that needs to go into the game to kind of max out and how that compares to other titles in the market. And then finally, I thought in line with your meta decks topic, I would go for the top 3 and overrated and underrated troops. Which troops do you think are really, really strong and which are sort of like not as good as everyone says they are? And which troops do you think that are underused, especially in PvP?
Yeah, I kind of enjoy just having like as a third topic, just something a little bit more light, just to end the podcast rightfully so. So yeah, I guess without further ado, we'll jump into our first topic, which is not my favorite. I wish we didn't have this topic to discuss. We've actually been talking a lot about that behind the scenes, and it's Warcraft Rumble's already in trouble, which is surprising, especially surprising to me because I think the game is so freaking good. It's for me, it's the best mobile game I've ever played, honestly. And yeah, we are in trouble. The viewership have dropped, which is normal, expected, as we just had like the release with BlizzCon 2023 and all that hype there. But then I'm scared, and I think we are scared of what's next. So if we can just give a little bit of context, Blizzard hasn't really been in contact with any of the content creators as I'm aware, or with the community, right? So yeah, I have a few things I want to go over of what Blizzard should do and what we could do as a community to fix this issue. Do you have any first words before I jump into that?
Yeah, I think it's important to sort of just say that I don't want to go down the route of Rumble is dying. The game's been out for 2 weeks ultimately. So, you know, it's one of those things that it had a good start. I think it had a very good start. And then obviously, as with any mobile game, you're always going to get a natural drop off of people once they figure out that the PvE campaign has its walls and they're quite frustrating to get past if you don't want to spend any money. And PvP can be obnoxious if you get, especially once you get above sort of a certain honor threshold. But, you know, there are some signs that maybe the game didn't do as well as Blizzard hoped it would have done from the BlizzCon launch. And that's kind of mainly what I want to discuss with you, yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess that's a perfect segue of what I wanted to say. So what could Blizzard do to fix this or to help the game? We are not talking about features in the game, okay? I think we are going to cover that maybe more on your side of the channel with your first topic. But like what they need to do as a company, I mean, it's quite obvious with what I said earlier, but the first thing they need to do is communicate. I think this is like the biggest red flag when a company doesn't communicate. And I mean, they don't have to say much, really. They just have to reassure that we are still working on the game. Everything is going well. We are happy to see people here. And then maybe just creating a creator program, or I think there's plans to do a creator program. I'm not sure if there still is. I really didn't think they would go radio silent after like the first weekend. If you guys don't know, before the game launched, they were like the first week before the game launched, they were actually extremely close. So they were on the Discord, they were talking with a bunch of creators. It was every time someone from Blizzard was in the Discord, it was super hype. We got a lot of infos and stuff like that. And then, I don't know, radio silent. I think you actually have a better understanding of what that means. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, look, my personal gut take is this has happened to me on a few titles before. For those of you who don't know, I've got quite a long history in mobile games, and I've been through a lot of deaths of mobile games in that sense. Vainglory, but they were very communicative. What I would say about the SEMC folks behind Vainglory is that even up until the death of Vainglory, they were actually quite communicative throughout the whole process. I played a game which is very similar to Rumble. It was very much like a grown-up take on Clash Royale. It was called Command and Conquer Rivals. A lot of you might never have heard of this game. It was a title launched by EA, probably, I think it was 2019, something like that. It was just before COVID. And essentially, Command and Conquer Rivals was a little bit like grown-up Clash Royale with Command and Conquer units, but you could control the units in like a hexagonal 1v1 thing, and it was really cool. Like, had loads of great interactions. There was loads of micro play to it, and it was launched with more features than Warcraft Rumble has, which is what I found awesome, which is what I'm going to talk about in sort of later on in my section. But the features they had was fantastic. EA had an esports program lined up for it. They did a massive launch event in San Francisco, similar to BlizzCon, but this was an event dedicated to Command and Conquer Rivals. And then a week after the launch, I got a call from someone working at EA saying, "Yeah, we're pulling the plug on everything, on like all Command and Conquer Rivals stuff. Yeah, the game just didn't do as well in the first week as we wanted it to, and that was enough for them to say we don't think it's coming back from here." So that's, I guess, a little bit from where I was feeling, oh God, is this kind of happening again with Rumble? And I kind of agree with you in the sense that, like, if you've got a community team and you have a community team that is at least working on Rumble, you should just at least keep chatting post-launch, just saying, I hope you guys are enjoying the game. What did you guys think about the content roadmap? How are you feeling about this? I know that someone found a link to a creator program, so at least there was an idea that a creator program would exist in Warcraft Rumble. That link no longer works. I don't know whether they're bringing it back. I really hope they do, because I think we've got some really cool content creators in Warcraft Rumble, and I think there's a lot of stuff they can do by forming close relationships with content creators, especially the ones that are endemic to Warcraft Rumble, like the guys who really want to play it as a game that they love, not just because they thought they were trend hopping or trying to get on a new title. So I think, like, there's a lot they can do, but I agree with you. I just wish there was a bit more communication, especially like in this really critical stage when the community is just forming. You want to build a really strong community on your Discord and on your social channels. It just feels like having a bit more like communication from the devs would be awesome.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I think like, and I think the example you gave of this EA game, I'm not familiar with, but there's some similarities between the two examples, as companies not having a good track record, or like, I don't know, let's say the PR is maybe struggling a little bit right now with the Blizzard, and that's the same for EA. I've seen so many comments of people saying, "Don't you guys have fun?" which is a meme from Diablo Immortal, which went terrible for PR. And I think it's unfair to bring all of that baggage to Warcraft Rumble. I've seen a lot of big creators that don't play Warcraft Rumble just shitting on the game just for no reason, just because it's Blizzard. And I think maybe there's some part of that which sucks. I think the game is fantastic. I don't think they're predatory in any way with their monetization. Yeah, we are going to talk about that on your side of the channel in just a minute. But yeah, I don't know. It's there might be a lot of circumstances that makes people don't want to try this game. People who are familiar with Blizzard track record. I don't know. It just sucks.
It does. I think, unfortunately, Blizzard has built a name for itself in the last few years of people not really enjoying the company. There's been a lot of controversy with Blizzard. That Diablo Immortal was controversial. Diablo 4 wasn't as good as people were hoping it was going to be.
Overwatch 2.
There was Overwatch 2, which is basically just Overwatch 1 DLC.
Warcraft 3 Reforged. Like, the list goes on and on and on.
The list. Blizzard haven't exactly forged a really reputable path like that. The Blizzard of 2001, 2002 is no longer the Blizzard of 2023. But they still do produce good games. Like, I enjoy Diablo 4, even though I don't really play it that much anymore, and I understand the pitfalls for it. I still got a lot of hours out of that game. And I agree with you. And I was just going to touch on that point about content creators, because I think Warcraft Rumble is a fantastic game. I think it is one of the best mobile games. I wouldn't say it's the best mobile game I've ever played. I think the best mobile game I've ever played will still be Vainglory, because just what that game achieved about 10 years ahead of what everyone else was achieving. But I think, like, it is in the top 3 mobile games I've ever played. And as a mobile game YouTuber, I've played a lot of mobile games. So that's, I think, a very big compliment for the game. Mm-hmm. And I think, like, I remember one example specifically is Bellular, a guy called Bellular, who's a World of Warcraft YouTuber, but he's kind of gone down this anti-Blizzard route. He kind of made a jab at Warcraft Rumble, was saying, like, it's just another kind of like cash-in game, but compared to Diablo Immortal, they probably made absolutely no money with it. And I'll talk about that in Pay to Win a little bit later. But it is worth noting that Diablo Immortal, I think from a Blizzard financial standpoint, has been successful. So, like, Blizzard actually has made a successful mobile game that they have continue to support. They are still producing a lot of content for the game because I think it has been so successful on the financial point of view. And I'm hoping like Warcraft Rumble can do something similar because I'd love to get that kind of level of support for this game as well.
Yeah, but yeah, I think like the thing is like if you're creating a game like Diablo Immortal, something like that, the biggest downside or is going to actually arrive on to the next game, which is exactly what I think is happening right now. People like if Diablo Immortal didn't exist, I know they made a lot of money with Diablo Immortal, which probably funded Warcraft Rumble. But then the game after that, people are not as trustworthy with mobile games, and so like I just think perhaps Blizzard is blaming Warcraft Rumble on the game, and perhaps that's not the whole reason it might not have been performing so well at the start. I think they need to advertise. Well, that was my second point. So I guess they need to advertise more the game for that reason, because it is a great game. I love this game. I wish I could play this game like for the rest of my life. I love it so much. I think all of the features that are coming out are going to be awesome. They seem to be really close to the community before BlizzCon. They're like all the announcements at BlizzCon 2 were great. But I think they need to advertise more, because I think if they do get enough people in, then the people that actually do play this game will be able to say to the other people that are hating that the game is actually good. I have a good example. I used to play Halo a lot, and then Halo had a terrible launch for Halo Infinite. But now the game's much better, and then people that are playing the game were able to communicate to outside players that the game is good. And like, I don't know. I just hope Blizzard don't just pull the plug. We aren't there yet, right? But I just hope they, or I should say, I hope they advertise more. I hope they put more money in that, and I think they could, if they trust the process a little bit more, I think they could be sitting on a gold mine. And yeah, I think they just need to advertise more. But I will say, we were planning to record this video this morning. I've actually seen like 3 different ads for Warcraft Rumble, which was the first time I've actually seen ads for Warcraft Rumble, other than BlizzCon, obviously, right? So maybe they are starting there. Maybe there's a glimmer of hope, but we'll have to see in the next couple of days. But yeah, have you seen ads?
Yeah, no, I haven't seen ads personally, but I have seen you linked me the couple that you've seen.
Yep.
So maybe there is a paid ad spend now going on, which will be really interesting to see if that obviously has an impact. Obviously, we know how impactful that's been for games like Raid Shadow Legends, where they basically threw money at the wall to get people to download that game.
Yep.
So, I think like we'll see how that works out. The other thing that, I wanted to mention is that there was a couple of things, 2 tiny points. BlizzCon, it's not a great place to launch a mobile game. We've seen that with the sort of the Diablo Immortal takes that happened a few years ago. BlizzCon, people go there for PC Blizzard updates mostly. Like PC Blizzard updates is what BlizzCon's for. I talked to a couple of guys on the ground at the Warcraft Rumble event at BlizzCon. They said it was pretty empty. They said that people weren't actually that interested in sort of a mobile game at BlizzCon. So, and I think that's fair, because ultimately BlizzCon has been a foundation for PC gamers primarily for years. And it's not, it doesn't have a reputation as a mobile gaming conference. People that go there aren't actually mobile game first players. But I've seen loads of people that joined, especially my channel, because I've got a lot of older people on my channel, like who loved Warcraft back in the day, and they're playing it because they enjoyed the thematic and the IP. So there's definitely a link that can be made there. And the only other thing is what the hell was what was my second point? I've mind blanked on my second point. It will come back to me. But essentially it was kind of along the lines of, oh yes, got it back. Often in game dev, and this happened in Wild Rift, often in game dev, you sometimes are contracted to a game launch, and then after the game launches, your contract's over, and people move on. And that happened in Wild Rift. When Wild Rift officially launched, which was around the time that it went live in North America with its own North American server, loads of the devs left the team, and everyone couldn't work out why. But it's because essentially their contractual period was they get a bonus once the game's launched. A lot of people get a bonus once the game's launched, and once the game's out and they get their bonus, they go off and find a new role, because they want to work on a game development rather than on a live service game. And I get that. So that, there might be the case that just maybe some of the devs who were working on Rumble when it officially launched, that was it. They took their contractual bonus payment, and that was the end of their contract, or they just they looked for an internal move so they could go back to working on like an in development role or something like that. Don't know if that would apply to a community team, obviously, but just worth noting that is something that can happen in game dev teams, and might have been the case maybe with Warcraft Rumble.
Mm-hmm. And I guess like we've talked about Blizzard, what Blizzard needs to do. So communicate more, trust more, trust the process a little bit more, spend more money on advertisement and stuff like that. But I think there's a few things we could do as a community to make the game grow, which would all benefit all of us, right? Because I don't know for you, but everyone I'm interacting with, they love the game, like big fans of the game. Like I don't really interact with many like, oh yeah, it's okay. Like people really do enjoy the game. So it would be a win-win for Blizzard, but obviously for us who actually do enjoy the game. And what I think we should do, the first thing, well, I have a couple of things, right? So first of all, I think we need to, and this is an invitation to all other content creators, all viewers, stuff like that. I think the Twitter scene is dead, or the X scene is dead. So I think we should revive that a little bit. If we go there, if we all go on Twitter, all start following each other, we could help with that. And actually, like I share my decks, just sharing thoughts, stuff like that. I think this could help a lot with the community, with all of those stuff. And yeah, what are your thoughts of what we could do as a community to help the game?
Yeah, I think like definitely encouraging people to kind of find these spaces as an open platform. I think a lot of discussion right now is centered around the Discord. That's probably the most active place. The Reddit is relatively popular as well, believe it or not, which kind of showcases the kind of the older crowd. I think like, you know, I think the demographic for Warcraft Rumble is a little older than most mobile games. So, you know, trying to find more open platforms like X would be really good. I hate calling it X, and we call it Twitter. I think, you know, finding places like Twitter would be really good. And I agree. And I, to be honest with you, I could try and tweet a bit more. I don't really tweet much at all anymore. I used to tweet loads when I was kind of more active in the esports scene, but, you know, I could tweet a bit more and definitely kind of have that input. And I think, like, I agree with you. I think I get about 10% negative comments on YouTube. Out of everybody that comments on my videos, 10% of those are kind of negatively weighted towards Blizzard. And most of them are on a video that I made that was a bit of a negative clickbait video that I made right way back at the start of Warcraft Rumble Beta when I was playing it. So most of it is centered around one video. But, you know, apart from that, you know, I think like most people are really positive about the game. They really enjoy playing it. Obviously, I get the frustration, especially from the free-to-play players, that there is clearly some frustration there, which I guess we'll talk a little bit later. But, you know, I think we could be more active and chatting on social media and chatting on places that are a bit more open, that word of mouth marketing could be more powerful if we're just talking on these open social media platforms about Rumble and sort of engaging with each other, engaging with each other. I can't talk. Engaging with each other, which I think, yeah, is definitely a good point.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, so I guess it's kind of ironic because we're talking negatively right now, but I think just staying positive with the game, not going like down that rabbit hole of like, oh, they're canceling the game. It's been 1 week or 2 weeks? Are we already 2 weeks from BlizzCon or 2 weeks? Okay, so yeah, we are only 2 weeks from BlizzCon. When I started playing, I actually had a lot of fun playing the game for like 2 months, or until now. I still have fun, but like I didn't get any fatigue from the game, especially the first like 5 weeks, because the first 5 weeks you get like a different theme faction, you get new dungeons. It kind of feels like you always have new content when the game actually launches. So like I think they still have time to add stuff, to fix stuff, to communicate. But yeah, we just have to make sure that they do eventually communicate in the next, I would say, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks. I hope they do communicate before the end of the season, I guess.
Me too. And look, you know, I want to stress that I do not think the game's going anywhere. And obviously they still have their content roadmap out there. I think the expectations from, especially from even from me, maybe were a bit higher. And I will take, you know, an example is that, I'm sorry. I take it so I can still hear my son who's awake. After this point, I'll ask Big Muff to pause and I can go and sort him out. You know, I think one of the big expectations, especially from a lot of content creators, I specifically saw a tweet. I won't call the content creator out because I don't want to call him out by name, but I specifically saw a tweet from the content creator who someone has said, oh, something about Rumble, and they tweeted at him, and he said, oh, you know, I would have just loved for there to be more search traffic interest. So basically insinuating that actually the game's search interest wasn't high enough for him to want to continue making actual content, and he was going to stick with his original game, which I totally get. You know, I totally get. And actually, you've probably seen that from content creators that initially jumped on the hype who have just stopped because the initial that burst of being the first content creator, you know, the reason this happened, and me and you know it well, the reason we had a load of content creators jump on who probably haven't been playing since the beta or were coming from other games is A, their game they're a bit tired of after so many years, and B, they were hoping to be one of the first content creators in when the blow up happened. But obviously it hasn't blown up to the extent that people maybe were hoping it to, and so you'll find that those content creators are not going to bother now because it's not worth their time.
Yeah.
And I think that's very fair for a lot of content creators who will then just go back to the game that they're originally working on. Because I get the need, I get that urge to want to change game because I've done that before in the past. I've done it loads, to be honest with you. But you know, it's just that's what I think people were expecting to happen. I think a lot of content creators were expecting that to happen, and it definitely was quite hype on that launch weekend. But it has died down, and I think for context, I'll just give you a bit of context. My traffic has dropped by 50%, just over 50% since the initial launch from Warcraft Rumble, which I think is relatively natural for a game as post-launch, especially a mobile game. It's now about where it goes from here. Does it stay at that level, or with this sort of these influencer and paid ad campaigns, does it slowly climb back up and generate interest over time? That's the kind of thoughts that I'm having essentially.
Yeah. For me, it's I've actually also seen some more videos from other content creators. I think all of the tribe guys are all have like an ad deal, because I've seen like Cozy, Molt, Dexter. Well, actually, you know what? Dexter really does enjoy this game. He's been streaming in it a lot. Yeah, but I've seen all those tribe guys actually do some ads. So I don't know. Maybe they're cooking something up. But we'll have to wait to see in the foreseeable future what they do. Our second topic today was the theme faction week. So as you guys know, in the different dungeons, every week we are going to have a different dungeon with a different faction, and that applies also to the shop, right? So this week we have the Blackrock week, and then I believe next week it's Undead, and it's Beast, I think, then Alliance Horde or something along those lines. But every week we have a themed faction, and so yeah, we have this that applies to the dungeon, and we have this that applies to the grid. This functionality or this feature is very interesting to me, and I'm very curious of what you guys think about that as well, because there's some good side and there's some bad side. So, for example, the good side, let's start with that. The good side is that we see a lot of different meta changes, right? So, I don't know if you do remember, but no one was playing Drakisath. No one's playing Drakisath, and then the Blackrock week turned up, and now everyone's playing Drakisath. And we already had the dragon turrets, I think. Did we? Or did
I think the dragon turrets have been out for it was last weekend. We've only had the dragon turrets for a week.
Okay, but was it during Blackrock week only?
I think we've only had dragon turrets for this week. Yeah, because I remember making my video. Yeah, so I think the dragon turrets definitely influenced Drakisath's return.
Yeah. Okay, well then I have a better example. The week before that was Horde, right?
Yeah.
And then we saw some like Gromash. We saw a lot of Cairn also lists. So so it does help with the meta. It helps with that. But there's a big part of frustration from that. And I think the biggest one is that newer players, they don't care about Blackrock, for example. Or let's say they don't care about Blackrock and they just want to upgrade their Baron Riven there because Baron Riven there is broken, right? Well, then if you just missed the Undead week, you have 4 weeks or 5 weeks to you have to wait like more than a month before you go back to that week where you can upgrade your Undead leaders. So that sucks. That's I don't know. I can't understand why it feels bad if you picked the wrong talent. You can't even upgrade your leader to get the right talent to play him. So there is a lot of frustration there from a lot of players, which is completely understandable. For us, I don't think it's as bad because we've actually done those weeks before. But even then, like if you don't get your deck to full gold, well, then you kind of feel like you're being left behind if you want to play. For example, I have a full gold list with my Drakisath, with my Horde, because it's like the second time we've been playing those in the dungeons. But my Baron Riven list, I still only have like some bronze slots or a few silver slots. And I wish I had them all gold, then I would play it in PvP. But now I'm just kind of waiting until next week. And next week there's only going to be some Baron lists everywhere. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this themed faction weeks?
Yeah, I mean, I think the good points that you describe is sort of like that ability to have more people experimenting, more people influencing the meta, and I get that 100%. I personally hate the theme faction weeks. I hate the theme faction weeks in every single way. I wish you could just go into the dungeon with whatever leader you wanted. I really wish you could just jump into the dungeon for whichever week you wanted, with whichever leader you wanted. There is some benefits from content creation point of view, having one leader and one faction, because ultimately when I do kind of like my free to play, kind of like no talent runs, I know which leaders people are going to be interested in. But I completely get the frustration of like, you want to play a certain leader, you want to be competitive with a certain leader, and that, you know, let's say you've just missed Horde week and you've suddenly unlocked Cairn and you want to run like a Cairn list. You now can't do that for 4 weeks because ultimately it's not coming back around on the dungeon to upgrade anytime soon. And I think like, I don't mind it on the grid. I don't mind that affecting the grid because, you know, it is what it is. If you had any leader if you had any leader in the grid at any point, the chances of you upgrading probably be just as slim over the course of those 4 weeks anyway, because every leader would show up. So I kind of like the idea of limiting leaders in the grid because they're more important. So you want you want them to show up more frequently. The problem is that you can't let people select which one they want because that'd be too easy and that'd be bad for Blizzard's money. So I kind of get that as well. But the dungeons to me are just frustrating because deck upgrade slots mean so much in terms of PvE and PvP that, you know, not being able to touch a leader. Like when I bought Sylvanas, Undead Week, or when Sylvanas came out, Undead Week had just gone. So me and you, who got Sylvanas when she came out, we still have 3 bronze slots on Sylvanas because we haven't been able to use her in a dungeon. And therefore, that's probably influenced our kind of thinking as to how she's shit because we can't ultimately play her at a super high level in PvP. It might be this week we suddenly start seeing some absolutely insane Sylvanas lists come out because people have now started upgrading her and using her at a high level. And it might change your mind completely on where Sylvanas sits. I personally don't think it will, but I'm ready to eat my words if that's the case. I'm ready to eat my words if it's the case. So yeah, I don't know what the solution is though, because you can't just change. Maybe they give you an option at the start of the week. Says, would you like to you can choose the week that you want it to be, and maybe you want to focus on BlackRock for like 2 weeks in a row. You know, maybe that would be a way of doing it, and you just have to choose it at the start of the week, and that is it. Like you get it for that week, but you have to choose it at the start of the week.
Yeah, I think that's some very good point you pointed out. Like for dungeons, I kind of feel like I'm forced to push my dungeon as like high as possible, and then if I don't, sometimes like when there's 3 leaders that you need to upgrade, you're gonna run out of time sometimes. And then it feels bad because like the week after that, you're gonna have to wait like 5 weeks, right? So then I don't know. It kind of feels like extremely grindy, which sucks. I think like dungeons should be something where you're like excited to do because they're gonna upgrade your deck, and then you don't feel rushed. You feel like, oh, okay, I'm not ready to do this level. I'm gonna wait a little bit, come back with that same leader. That, you know, it's a dungeon. It's supposed to be hard. It's a challenge. I don't know. Yeah, I think there's some improvement they could make for the dungeon. I personally do like the aspect of being locked into one leader or one faction. I don't know why. I like having the like. You kind of feel like you're attached to a faction for a little while, but I mean they definitely need to do some improvement. I don't know how. If you guys have any ideas, make sure to tell us down below. Make sure to tell us what you guys feel about this system. But for the grid, for me, that's actually the part that bothers me the most is the grid part.
Interesting.
Yeah. So what I would do, I've actually thought about for the grid. What I would do for the grid is, what about they just appear more often? Like that's a simple fix, right?
Yeah, simple, but then you also obviously are going to reduce the amount that minis would otherwise come in the grid because ultimately Blizzard are not going to want to increase the number of things offered in the grid because that's just bad for money. And I'm saying it from a game design. They need to make money from a free to play game somehow, right? So they want to encourage you to buy gold to refresh the grid, to keep searching for the correct minis. If you increase leaders, you have to reduce minis because they're not going to give you more slots in the grid, I don't think. So,
but what about like for every like 4 times you see like a leader, one of these 4 times is going to be like a different leader.
Yeah, I like that idea. So, like, it's not, you're not fully locked in. Like, let's say it's predominantly leaders from one faction, but there's a 1 in 4 chance that the leader will be
Yeah,
from another faction. I quite like that idea. Like,
yeah,
you could probably bake that into the calculations quite well. It says it knows it's shown you 3 leaders from Horde, so the next leader you see is going to be from one of the other factions. It still makes
yeah.
it very slim chances to find the leader that you want, but at least there's some element that maybe on a week off you'll find the 3 stars that you need to get to to get to uncommon or whatever you
Yeah,
want to get your first talent.
yeah, or just unlocking a leader. Like if you miss a
Yeah,
week and then you have to wait 5 weeks just to unlock a
to unlock a
leader,
leader. Yeah, yeah.
that sucks. But then Old Murkais appears in the shop. Well, it's a Horde week. There it is. You can try it, and then if you like it, if you like Old Murkai, well then you just wait for Beast Week, and then that's when you spend your gold. So I don't know. I think there's some improvement there to be said or to be done. Yeah, make sure guys to tell us what you guys think. So we could
What would be even
towards
better,
it.
one of the biggest pain points that I've seen before we move on to the next topic,
Of course.
when you get a new leader selection, just make one of them a leader that you don't own. For people that
Oh
are
yeah.
new, like at least one of them, just make them for a leader that you don't own. Because I've seen so many people like, I need Hogger, I really want Hogger, but they get to a leader selection and they just get 3 of the leaders they already own. So it's like just on that, at least for new players, Blizzard, when you get that very rare new leader selection reward, don't give them leaders they already own, or at least give them one leader that they don't own, so they have the option of just unlocking something new. Because it feels really bad to get to that nice reward and you just get offered leaders you've already got. And especially if you own only like four out of the total leaders, and you just get 3 of the options that you've already got. That just sucks. It really sucks. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I do agree. I do agree with that. All right, I think we are good with this topic. We will jump into our final topic here, which is more lighthearted. It's the it's more lighthearted, but it might be the most important topic here, and it's we both made a top 5 list, or a top 5 meta decks list, and we are going to go over every single one of these 5. And hopefully it can help you guys with like finding your favorite deck. If you guys are just looking to, if you guys are what we call meta slaves, you can just look at these meta decks and pick one. So how we are going to proceed, I'm going to give my 5, then you're going to give your 5, and we'll go 4, 4, 3, 3, 2, 2, 1, 1. And I'm wondering how close we are. Maybe we have the exact same list, maybe not. I think there's some picks. I might be completely off with maybe my 4 and 5. Especially my 5, I'm not too sure. But yeah, are you ready? You have your top 5?
Give me a second. I'm just writing them down so I don't forget them.
And guys, make sure to tell us if we're wrong about any of these picks. Make sure to tell us down below.
I don't think you can be wrong. I don't think. I think like meta is very much a matter of opinion and seeing what other people are doing. But I just don't think you can be wrong. I think like everything that you come out with is going to be in some way, shape, or form correct.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've got my 5 anyway. So yeah.
I think our number 1 is going to be the same. Like if we don't have the same number 1, I'm gonna be extremely surprised. But yeah, I'm gonna start with my 5th one, which I don't know. That one is kind of new, and my number 5 is actually did you Cairn list with Dark Spirit Troll. So the Dark Spirit Troll with the 20% extra HP from Cairn is actually going to survive from a safe pilot, which is huge because everyone's running safe pilots. And also, if you play Big Bad Voodoo on the Dark Spirit Troll, you actually heal back to full health, and then you can take down a tower. A Dark Spirit Troll can solo a tower with any of these 2 talents, with Big Bad Voodoo or the Serpent Sting. Any of those 2 talents can take down a tower. The Dark Spirit can take down a tower just by himself, which is very incredible. And I've seen this list popping recently. I think Warcraft have been playing this list a lot. Fat Seb as well, or maybe it was Fat Seb. Anyway, so a lot of big names have been playing this list recently. It's kind of new. Yeah, have you seen this list around?
100%, and it's my number 5 too. Unironically, my number 5. So yeah, I think this list is very strong. I think the Big Bad Voodoo Troll only works in Cairn. I think there have been people that are trying to play Big Bad Troll with Big Bad Voodoo Troll outside of Cairn, but it still gets one shot by safe pilot. So it's kind of becomes a bit of a wasted talent. I think it works really well in Cairn. I think it's definitely a super strong deck. kind of became popular in the last couple of weeks, maybe even just in the last week, like you said. And obviously, Big Bad Voodoo on Troll means he can tank the Dragon Towers and take them by himself. So yeah, I think this list is really good. It's my number 5 meta deck for sure.
All right. Well, I guess I'll just jump to my number 4. My number 4, I have the new. We just talked about it earlier, but the elemental Drakisath with the Shaman with the Earth Shield play. So you play the Drakisath with the Frostwolf Shaman, and the Frostwolf Shaman has the Talon Earth Shield, which is going to give armor to the Drakisath, making the Drakisath not only resistant, but also armored. And yeah, this has been an extremely powerful list recently with the new Dragon Towers. And also, it's super fun because of the fact that it's like a one-push build. It's I don't know, it's kind of nuts. Have you seen this list? I'm sure you've at least seen it.
I've not played into it, believe it or not, but I know that it's strong. It's not in my top 5 because I think there are some ways of dealing with it. I just don't rate slow decks at all. I really don't rate like one-push slow decks. So I think like I know it's strong. I know it can be used. Especially when I was playing like loads on stream at like the nearly 4K honor for like some of my decks, and slow decks just get absolutely rattled by the pace of the meta at the top end. So yeah, I think I'm not too keen on this in the top 5, but I do know it's good. I do know it is good deck, and I know it can carry you really hard at sort of like, especially when you're climbing with Drakisath, because a lot of people don't know how to deal with it. I think the fact that Rend is still so popular makes this deck a little harder to pull off, because Rend still is like, Drakisath is just so weak to air in general, and fair. Frostwolf Shaman is not a good anti-air unit, so it's sort of like there isn't a huge amount of kind of like ways of dealing with that. But I do know it's strong, but it wouldn't be in my top 5. But I think I put it at number 6 maybe. I honestly would put it at number 6, so it would be just outside for me.
So what's your number 4?
Maiev.
So interesting.
I think Maiev is still super strong despite the Dragon Tower changes. I would be running a Maiev with Skeleton Party Corpse Run. So kind of running a Skeleton Party Corpse Run Maiev deck. You don't play Corpse Run on the side tower anymore, but you can still put it in the corner of the base, and those skeleton mages just they are impossible to kill. So yeah, there's you could even run the five skeleton mage talent, the Ritual of Rhyme talent, and it still do quite well, because like those skeleton mages are so unbelievably obnoxiously tanky, and if you get them up 3 levels, they become even harder to deal with the Dragon Tower. So I've seen a lot of Maievs do well, plus the fact that Maiev is one of the only decks that you can run those Unbound minions in and feel good about including them in your deck. Like, obviously, because the problem with things like Safe Pilot and Quillbore is like they're a necessity for most decks. Otherwise, you just get obliterated in terms of eco. Whereas with Maiev, they make her better. So it's like it's good to run them. So she's one of the few decks that just has such complete control over the gold mines and such complete control over the eco. If you let Maiev step on you, you will never get control of the game again. And good Maiev players will immediately control the eco and will just starve you out of resources. And it doesn't matter that she's not as good versus the towers anymore, because it's all about resource control with Maiev. And a good Maiev player will make sure you get no access to chests, no access to gold, and just find it very difficult to play. So yeah, that's my take on before.
Yeah, I'm going to have to completely agree with everything you just said. I think Maiev is so strong right now in the current meta, but she's not on my number 4.
She's higher. I bet she's higher for you. I imagine she's probably higher. Yeah.
So my number 3 is actually still going to be, it's Old Murkai. So I think Old Murkai is still very strong. I think he's even better with the Dragon Turrets because the Murlocs don't get one-shotted. Yeah, I think it's honestly a pretty consistent deck with like Quillbore that is obviously very, very well played in. You guys can see Quillbore and Safe Pilot is played in every single list.
Yeah, pretty much.
So yeah, Quillbore works so extremely well with the Old Murkai. Unfortunately, the Earth Elemental is not as good anymore, but the fact that we have the Quillbore that still works super well. We have the new edition of Prowler. Not sure if you guys have seen, but Prowler has risen up a lot in the meta in a lot of decks. So Prowler fits also very, very good in this Old Murkai list because he can take down the chests bottom mid. So yeah, extremely, extremely good deck. I'm still seeing Old Murkai played a lot, even if we haven't seen the Beast Week once. A lot of people are still playing Old Murkai, especially at past 3K.
Yeah, again, old Murkey's not in. Despite me loving Murky, and I do love Murky, he's not actually in my top five at the moment because I've seen a massive return of Blizzard to the meta. So Blizzard has kind of come back in force for a lot of decks, and Murky's just really bad versus Blizzard. Like he's like,
Yeah.
especially because your units tend to meet at the bridge when they go under the bridge, and some units get over the bridge at the same time. Like everything just runs into Blizzard and ends up getting squashed. But I've seen a lot of return to Blizzard to the meta, which is why I've not included Murky. He's also a bit of a one-trick pony deck. You know what's happening, so if you're prepared for Murky, like a lot of people, and like a good safe pilot player can sometimes deal with a Murky push like really well. And getting safe pilot control on the top of the bridge like very early on can make it difficult for Murky to run under the bridge. And despite him not dying to the towers, I actually think Murky was better versus the normal guard towers because it took a long time to whittle down one each of the massive horde. Now the dragon towers will actually just clean out your entire Murky squad very quickly, actually quicker than I think the guard towers did. But you can tank it with Quillbore. Obviously, one of the benefits is that you kind of place Quillbore before Murky gets there, and his little horde of Murlocs get there, and then like you can get a lot of damage done. But I still think Murky's a very good deck. Like it's up there in top 7, you know, like it's just outside of the top 5. I couldn't include it, even though I love Murky. But yeah, I do agree with you that it's strong, 100%.
But to be fair, I do agree with you that like I think Olberkai has probably the best matchup and the worst matchup at the same time, which makes it like. And also, he's extremely dependent on your starting rotation. But if you have your perfect starting rotation with Olberkai, your safe pilot, your Quillbore, you're going to have so much pressure, especially if you're playing against a deck that doesn't have the answer to all of that. So extremely good matchup in some cases, extremely bad matchup in some cases, but I can see I can see your point. So let me ask you for your number 3. I guess maybe it's I'm guessing Rend.
It's Rend, and it's controversial because I know that we thought Rend was actually worse in the Dragon Tower meta. But I played a lot, and I was playing versus some of the mega whales. Like, you know, I'm talking about Diablo Gaming mega whales on ladder yesterday. And Rend with scale and steel is actually still super strong. The dragon can tank the tower for a very long time with scale and steel. Because it makes him resistant, and then obviously Rend charges in and still gets a bit of chip damage on the tower. People are playing this deck without Gargoyle though, so obviously the old way that you played Rend was that you ran Gargoyle because it was a cheap 3 gold, tank split pusher when you had Rend active. The list that you're running is very similar to the ones that you're kind of seeing on the ladder right now, and it's still super strong. I think one of the things that we all forgot is that, or one of the things that we all sort of, I guess, thought about was like, oh, it's how they do versus the tower that matters, but it's actually not. It's still about map control. It's still about how much presence that you have on the map, and anti-air is not included in a lot of decks at the moment. Not many people are playing a huge amount of anti-air unless you're like Cairn and you've got the big bad voodoo troll in there. So a lot of lists aren't running a huge amount of anti-air unless you're Baron as well with that ridiculous talent. But yeah, other than that, like it's still quite difficult for some decks to deal with air. So I think like Rend still has a place. A lot of the top players are still playing Rend in their top 3. I think the rumors of Rend's death were greatly overstated. he's still a pretty strong meta deck and is still being played, I think, a decent amount on ladder.
Yeah, I agree completely. For me, that was like my number 6, barely off.
Yeah.
Maybe it should have been on the list, but yeah, the thing is, like, what's crazy is like this exactly is that I'm playing is one of the top players, or I think it's one of the best players, Talad, or one of these guys that was playing this exact list. And what I was really surprised of is like the actual benefit of playing Rend and all your flying minis cost 1 less only applies on the whelp eggs. Which is crazy to me because I thought like the whole idea was to play Rend Blackhand and then you just can reduce the cost of everything, but just himself, Rend Blackhand is extremely good, and the Whelp eggs are just broken as well, which makes this deck extremely strong. And once again, the addition of the Prowler that I've seen in those Rend lists has made this deck so much better. Some lists are playing the Drake with the Mother Drake talent, which spawns Whelp eggs everywhere, so there's so much control, and there's actually a few different Rend lists in their current meta. So yeah, I agree completely. And I'm going to go with my number 2. And
we'll just say about Rend, by the way, before we move on from Rend.
Go ahead.
The thing about Rend that I think people have realized is that unlike Sylvanas, he's a good 6 gold unit because
Oh
you're
yeah.
getting a Drake for free, which is 4 gold, and then you're basically getting an armored Stonehoof Tauren for free, which is 4 gold. So you've got, or rather, if you're playing Scale and Steel, but you basically get a Drake plus a Stonehoof Tauren with Rend, which is 8 gold worth of minis. And yeah, so I think that's why people have realized actually I don't necessarily need the discount, because ultimately Rend is just a good 6 gold unit. And so yeah, I think that's probably why you're seeing people kind of stray away from needing to utilize that reduction in gold passive on Rend.
Yeah, but it's like a 5 gold because you always play the whelp eggs, right?
Sure. Yeah. You always play the well pegs. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, extremely good. And yeah, my number 2 is in fact the Maev list that you just mentioned earlier. Yes. So Maev extremely good for all the exact reason you set up. So the map control is insane with her. Safe piloted Quillbore is played everywhere. So you start the game with both of these units in your hand. You're going to play both of them immediately, and then your Maev is already reduced to 4 gold. So I mean, the amount of value she gets from all the different units in the current meta, I mean, I don't have much more to say. She's just extremely strong because of the map control, and there's nothing you can do. You kind of feel like drown when you're playing against a Maev list.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a great way of describing Maev. You feel like you're drowning. It's because I've played her on ladder, and even with my super quick decks that I'm playing on ladder, like you still can't wrestle control of the map away from her. And even though they've made massive, I mean, for those of you that don't know, Maev was the #1 list in beta because they hadn't made these changes where you could actually get Safe Pilot to spawn on the base or close enough to the base that it dealt damage. You could put well pegs next to the base, and the flame burst dealt damage to the base. And you could essentially spawn things much closer to the barracks, which meant that you were able to essentially just spam people's bases and do nothing else in the map except for spam people's bases. So Maev was like the #1 bot deck because all the bots used to use it on the ladder. She was the #1 deck for high elo because high elo whales could just stomp everyone with their like 3 levels higher Maev units, and it just was difficult to contend with. So Maev still retains her strength, just slightly different play style from the ladder. But I've already talked about Maev in my list, so I won't go on too much, and I'll take you to my number 2 list, which is a new inclusion. I wasn't expecting to include this leader in my top 5, but after playing an absolute brick ton of it yesterday on stream and then making a video about it today, it's Tyrion. And it's not your classic Tyrion deck, and it's not the big math favored Tyrion plus Footman. And I actually saw Mr. Brute run a Footman Tyrion list with Holy Nova, which was interesting. I saw that video go out where he ran in a fire to give them the resistant, because I think on this current meta, if you're not giving them the resistant, they're just going to get melted by towers. They're not good enough. But this is funny, almost the exact list that I'm running. I'm just running
it from you.
I think I'm running Blizzard and not running Dark Iron Miner, but you've got the similar kind of ethos here. The whole point of this is that you just spam Tyrions. You just put Tyrions on the map over and over and over again. And I think I'm not running Chain Lightning. I can't remember what I'm running that isn't Chain Lightning. It's Prowler. That's it. I'm running Prowler. I'm not running Prowler. No, I'm not running Prowler. What the hell is my main list? What the hell is my main list running? Give me a second. I'll be able to find out for you in 2 seconds because I put a screenshot of it somewhere. Well pegs, of course. It's well pegs. So my main list runs
the well pegs.
I love well pegs, yeah, because they just deal with so many things. Yeah. So yeah, this is my list. It's got the only reason Blizzard is in there is for control. So it just helps you control certain matchups a bit better. And then the rest of this is just about map control, a little bit like Maev. You've got so many units dedicated to map control. You have a good defensive unit in the form of Griffin Rider. Griffin Rider is, in my opinion, like an insanely good unit for the defensive. And then it's about getting Tyrions down over and over again. And especially once you've got the Divine Shield talent on Tyrion, he's got so much control of the map. He's actually quite good against these dragon turrets because he gets 5 seconds of free hits on the tower because of the Divine Shield talent. And eventually, if you're able to, and it's not the primary goal for this deck because there isn't that many good minions to take the side tower. But if you can take the side tower, you can actually stack Tyrions on the base and make it very, very difficult for the enemy to deal with. So it's just become a really strong deck in recent times, and I've seen it played at top level. I actually got battered by this deck when I was playing my Gromash deck when I was climbing, and I was like, what is that deck? I started playing it and I went from 3k on Tyrion to 4k with losing 2 games. So like
That's
it's
crazy.
it's a really really strong deck. And I had one of the top players, you'll be able to see him on WarcraftRumble.gg, Fieldsy. He came into my stream when I was playing. He goes, "Oh, you're playing that annoying Tyrion cycle deck." So it's obviously something that's being seen at the top end of the ladder. And I think, yeah, that's why I've included it today, just because it has kind of popped up recently. People have found another twist on Tyrion, which is what I love about Warcraft Rumble, by the way. People are finding twists on decks.
Yep.
Every week there's a new deck coming out that is sort of like countering what's on the meta right now. And this deck's really good, really fun.
Yep. I guess that's just for that point of new decks appearing. I just think they need to readjust Safe Pilot and Quillbore because there's no reason it's played in every single list. It feels like we're building a 5-unit list, which sucks. But yeah, I've actually seen you play this on stream yesterday. I've watched part of your stream, and if you were able to bring your Tyrion to 4K, I might have to jump on that hype train and try it on stream. So yeah, I might do that.
I think you probably saw me on stream where I was just laughing because all you do is just play units. There's no thought that goes into the deck. You just you know that you're sending Tyrion down mid every single time. So the rest of it is just sending your essentially the same formula works every time I play this deck. Murloc Tidehunters over the bridge. Griffin Rider over the bridge, Safe Pilot on top of the bridge, Well Pegs behind the enemies where you need to, and obviously Quillboard to help contest chests, and then it's just Tyrion down mid on rotation over and over again, and it worked. And I played in my video today a no talent version, which just replaced the Well Pegs with Prowler, and it still works really really well. I went from 0 to 1.5k with no losses. I mean that's not a big achievement, as you know, like that's quite easy, but it's for lower level players who don't have talents. I beat a full talent Ren deck. And so not Ren deck, Baron deck, a full talent Baron deck, and it's in the video. I beat a full talent Baron deck at 1.5k. The guy was playing pretty well as well, and I was running no talents, and all of my units were like only just level 3 PvP. So you know, it's a really really good deck. It's got a lot of strength, and I think it will be very good for the until someone figures out a way of dealing with it a bit more effectively.
I think I have an answer because I've played so much Tyrion. Polymorph destroys Tyrion.
Yes, it does.
Destroys it. So like every time Tyrion does well, Polymorph appears and then just completely destroys Tyrion's. So I actually have like a Jaina list, which you play the I have it right here. You play the clear casting, which reduces the next spell by 1, and then you also play Golden Fleece. And then if you just solo polymorph the Tyrion, let's say, because the Tyrion's pushing, well, then the polymorph is going to cost only 1. So I think that's a perfect counterplay for those Tyrion lists, but I think we'll have to see how the meta stabilizes. But yeah, my guess is that polymorph is going to appear back in the meta.
Yeah, I think so. I think polymorph is already underused, and well, I'll talk about it later. I think polymorph's already underused, and it's still just an insanely good card. So, I think once people, it's a very skill-intensive card, is the way I'll put it. Though polymorph is quite dependent on your skill,
especially with the Golden Fleece talent, I think.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. So, do you have anything to add to this list, or should we go to the number 1?
I think both of our number 1s will be exactly the same, so we might as well announce it together.
Yeah, ready? 3, 2, 1. Baron Rivendare. Yep.
So, what do we say about Baron Rivendare, guys?
I mean, Baron Rivendare is just so freaking. I've talked on my last list, my Ev list, of being drowned. I mean, when you're playing against the Baron Rivendare list, if you don't control the chests at the start of the game, I feel like there's nothing you can do. Like there's constant skeleton spawning, especially if your opponent is good at timing his pushes with like the chest down the middle. There's nothing to do. Both gold mines are controlled by some skeletal mages, and then you have the chest that is controlled by like a Baron Rivendare just coming down the middle, and then So I think it's. I don't think it's controversial at all to putting Baron as number 1. The best player in the game, which I did a video on with recently for like we have a leaderboard now, and the number 1 player has Baron Rivendare at 7k, which says a lot. And then when you go on to see all the top Baron Rivendare players, like their honor is so much higher than any other leader. I think we've talked about it on the last Rumblecast, but they need to readjust Baron for sure.
Yeah, So I'm going to be playing. I'm going to probably stream a little bit after we've done our podcast, and I'm going to be playing a bit of Baron. I'm going to be seeing how far I can push my own Baron with a list that I saw on Fieldsy's profile on Warcraft.gg, which is essentially similar to the Tyrion list, just with Baron instead. And I think that the problem with Baron, and it's nothing to do with him as a unit, it's to do with his talent. Skeleton mages are just too strong. They are just too strong. They are way too strong. They spawn too quickly. They die too slowly. They control the map too well. And Baron's too, and also quite a cheap unit for what he does. Even though there's counters to Baron to an extent. For instance, General Drakasaf. The reason General Drakasaf is so good into Baron is because Baron deals elemental damage and he's armored, and General Drakasaf is resistant and deals elemental damage. So Baron gets shredded by him in like 2 shots. So obviously there's there's some counters to Baron, but ultimately Baron as a unit is only there to contest chests. That's all he does. On this map, he's basically your prowler. He's a 4 gold prowler. He just runs down the mid and contests chests. Whereas the real power of Baron is the chip away damage that the skeleton mages provide. They just constantly spawn. Your kobolds can't mine. You have to you always have to support a kobold. If you don't support the kobold, your kobold dies. Even versus non-skeleton mages version of Baron, if you don't support your kobold dies. The number one way to deal with Baron is by taking the side tower, which versus a dragon tower is actually quite difficult unless you're playing a big bad voodoo troll deck, for instance. Because once you take that side tower, you reduce a spawn location for the skeleton mages. But yeah, he's just too strong. He's cheap. He does too much for 4 gold with his passive. What more can you say? Until they nerf skeleton mages or nerf that Chill of the Grave talent, or even just the skeleton spawns in general, Baron will remain, I think, the number 1 leader in PvP.
Yeah, and I'm so afraid of next week. This week, it's the Undead week, and because we are filming this on Saturday, so yes, this week is Undead week, and I'm sure there's a bunch of Baron Rivendairs everywhere. Everyone's gonna upgrade Baron as much as they can. Everyone's gonna have some gold slotted Baron Rivendare list. Baron is also very good at clearing dungeons, doing PvE, so I think people are going to push Baron much further than they're supposed to. Yeah, I'm very afraid of next week's meta. Yeah, I think we are only going to see some Barons everywhere. Actually, more than we already do, which is like 50% of matchups sometimes.
Yeah, we will see a lot more Barons next week for sure. But look, it says a lot about the meta that me and you didn't even need to communicate what our top deck was, and we knew it would be the same.
Yeah,
that really tells you everything that you need to know about Baron in the meta.
Yeah. All right. So, guys, this was the first half of Rubblecast episode 2. So the second half is going to be on Excoundrel's channel. So go watch it there. And please feel free to tell us all your thoughts on all the different topics we discussed today. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode as well. I know the last episode a lot of people did enjoy. So, yeah, we'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. Bye, guys.